Is Justin Leppitsch's job on the line if Collingwood don't bring in players and lose players this offseason? Let's talk about it. So on SEN, of course, you're going to hate it, but Kane Cornes said this.
Justin Leppitsch at Collingwood, the list manager there. Very tricky situation at Collingwood.
Yeah, I would have him as on the hottest of hot seats this trade period. Hot. Like almost job on the line type hot seat.
Wow, that is hot.
Yeah. Because if this goes wrong, it's going to go wrong badly.
Now, I think it's a fair point to some extent, right? Worst case scenario, and this is worst case scenario, we lose Brody Mychek, we lose Jamie Elliott. So that's, 100 goals this season gone. Okay? Do we need to replace them with players coming outside of the club, or do we have players internally that can take their spots? Now, I said it was a fair point. I still think it's a fair point, not to the over-exaggeration that Kane does, and, he wants a soundbite and stuff like that. But I do think he has a fair point. Who are Collingwood bringing in? Now, we know Jack Buller's name has been thrown around. He wants to come to the Pies. Pies have offered him 2 or 3 years or something like that. Nothing official yet. He hasn't fully come out and said that. We're only going through get a ball and trade talk and these sort of external sources. But Buller is pretty much a Magpie in 2026. Only played 10 games for Sydney, a big key forward, and, could be a Myercheck replacement. Over the last few years, we've brought in Lockie Schultz to replace Ginnivan. We've brought in Dan Houston. So 2 really big names. You can even add in Harry Perryman there as well. Now, last year, or at the end of last year, Craig McRae said he wanted players over picks.
Who's coming to Collingwood? No one.
Well, big players last year, weren't they? And it was give me players, not picks last year.
Well, and that needs to be the philosophy again. Like, I know Craig McRae has sort of backed away from that almost ridiculous statement that he said this time last year, which didn't age that well. He said it's a combination of both, but they're all in. Like Pendlebury says, top up and go again. Well, you're not topping up if you're losing significant pieces of your team. So
now that's fair enough. The draft was, pretty deep because we got 3 really good kids from that draft. So Cochrane, West, and Will Hayes, who will feature next year in some capacity, you would think. We'll talk a little bit about, the kids coming through a little bit later on in this video. But do we need big names to call this offseason a success if we are to lose premiership players? Now, on the one hand, I really think we do need another midfielder, like another star midfielder. Like, I know we can't go for merit because we have no picks, right? Out of the question. I think Petrarca was going to be that player. Like, he wanted to come to us last year by all accounts and the reporting back then. Looks like he's set on Adelaide or the Gold Coast Suns. I do think we need a mid to replace these aging mids in side bottom, in Pendles, Howe down back as well. I just feel like Collingwood, and this could be my Collingwood bias, this could be nothing more than a hunch based on the last couple of seasons. I feel like Collingwood is cooking something, and you remember, Schultz and Houston really came to us towards the end of the trade period. There was no sort of talks throughout the season or anything like that, or even at the start of trade period. So I wouldn't be surprised if Collingwood and Justin Leppitsch do have something in mind. Now, let's look at Brody Mychek and Jamie Elliott if they were to leave.
Surely they won't be losing Elliott and Mychek, but they've driven a really hard bargain for both. Do they keep both? Do they keep one? Do they lean on the loyalty of Elliott when others are offering more? And if Bobby Hilly's moved on, then who's influencing that forward line? So when Ginnivan was tapped on the shoulder and told to explore a move, they had Lockie Schultz already coming in. I mean, if they are going to lose 2 of the 3, all 3 of the 3, it does leave them exposed.
They haven't been, apart from Buller, who, not really going to get me that excited. Who's coming to Collingwood? No one.
In that preliminary final game, obviously those 2 players played. The 2 players that I can think of straight off the top of my head that can come in and replace them is Dan McStay, a great replacement for Brody Mychek. No matter what you sort of think about his form, you do have to remember, and I will say this caveat all the time, at one point, or probably for half a dozen games, he had to play three roles: forward, a backman to cover for Darcy when Frampton and Howe weren't there, and as a second ruck. So Dan McStay can replace Brody Marchek. Then you got Bobby Hill waiting in the wings to replace Jamie Elliott. Now, Bobby Hill isn't that high marking 60-goal a year forward like Jamie Elliott proved to be this season, but he is a ready-made replacement. So technically you don't really have to bring in another two forwards from another club that are ready to go. If you can get them 100%. Remember, we don't have any draft capital this season because we are looking at least three or four players from the draft that who are tied to us. You're looking at McGuan, um, McCarthy, and Saxena, and probably Doug Kerr as well as another mature aged mid. Now, if we look a little bit deeper, I want to look at the players who have played under 50 games for the Pies and who could probably feature in the best 23 going forward. Remember, they've just announced that there's no sub rule, so you can play these kids and rotate them and get good games into them as opposed to them playing just a quarter and a half of football. It is going to do so much for not only the team, like the structure and stuff like that, but for their development. There were games where Ed Allen or Parker or Steele would play less than a quarter of football, then have to play in the VFL the next couple of days so they can get their fitness or keep their fitness up, right? So 5 players on the bench is going to be huge. But let's look at the guys who have played 0 to 10 games. Now we'll go from top to bottom. You've got Noah House, who hasn't re-signed yet, still on that 6-month contract, so we haven't really heard anything from there, but he's a forward. They've been trying him out down back. You got Joel Cochran, who is a really tall halfback flanker who, is obviously down the pecking order because of Reef, Darcy, Howe, Houston now, Josh Dacos. Not that, he's that sort of player, but down a little bit of the pecking order. We do have a whole raft of halfbacks that we'll see in this 0 to 10 here. But Joel Cochran could even play on the wing. He played on the wing a couple of times in the VFL as well. Was hampered by a bit of injuries here and there this season, but he is going to be a really good player for us from the Swans Academy. You got Ilru Smith, who just re-signed as an extension. He's been training and playing in the VFL down back. An injury, like most of these guys here that I'm going to mention, were injured for the second half of the season, so we couldn't see their development. But Ilru Smith as a ruck or a backman could be interesting. You want to see another another preseason into him, and then see what they do with him in the VFL and the match sims going forward. He wouldn't. I reckon he'd be a great centre half back, or maybe not a full back because he's not that big. But if he could put a little bit of muscle on as a tall backman, he could really be anything. Then you got Oscar Steen, who I thought was in line for a debut somewhere this season, especially early on when we were playing Mason Cox. I thought Oscar Steen could do the job that Mason Cox was doing in that middle part of the season. He hasn't debuted yet, so expect him to debut. Then you got Harry Dimatia. There are a lot of raps on Dimatia. Started out as a halfback, then onto a wing, but now they're trialing him as an inside mid, and I think that's where he's doing his best work. There were calls for him to debut, and yeah, it would have been nice for him to debut, but one thing that I have against Dimatia at the moment is just his disposal efficiency. He can get the ball, he can use it well at times, but sometimes just needs to lower his eyes and hit targets instead of blazing away with it. So that would come into thinking a little bit during this preseason. Is that what he has to work on to get that debut? Then we look at the guys that have played one game over their career. Jacob Ryan, another halfback flanker. He is contracted till the end of 2026. One of those guys that he started well in the VFL, again, got an injury, so he was out for most of the VFL season. With Jacob Ryan, I haven't seen anything that would say give him more senior games. So I'm waiting for this preseason to see what he can do, how he comes back, and ready to hit it hard. TJ as well played that one game against the Doggies a couple of years ago. TJ's very, very exciting, quick off that halfback flank. Again, had a great start to the VFL season, but got injured. So it really does hamper these guys when they're having weeks and weeks and probably for some of these guys, months-long injuries, plural, that stops them from progressing. And, he just couldn't get back into the swing of things. But I am excited to see what he can bring to this team. Then you've got Charlie West. If you're looking for a Myercheck replacement, Charlie West is that guy. Played that one game, debuted against West Coast, kicked a goal, and then had a foot injury. So he was out for, I think it was like 6 to 8 weeks or something crazy like that. So couldn't even go back into the VFL. From the start of the season to when he debuted, had incredible VFL form, kicking goals after the siren, kicking bags of 3, 4, and 5. But we don't get to see the best of Charlie West because of the bloody foot injury at Marvel. I hate that ground for the reason of so many injuries happening at that ground. Braden Maynard had an injury at that ground. Bowman Creary had an injury at that ground. Charlie West had an injury at that ground. So bit of a pain in the ass right there. You've got Will Hayes with 2 games. I've liked what Will Hayes did in those 2 games. I want to see him develop a little bit more. Could be the Bobby type of player where he's quick and can find the goals really well. He will be competing with Saxena when he does come into the club, because Saxena is a little bit more like Bobby than Will Hayes is. So it's going to be interesting to see what the preseason looks like for them with training and with match sim. But I'm very excited about our forward line prospects, even without Checkers, even without Elliott. If that's worst case scenario, let me just say that again. You've got Roan Steele. So all of these players that have played 0 to 10 games, Roan Steele is pretty much your only midfielder in this team right now, or in this group of players right now. Roan Steele, 6-month contract, mid-season draft pick. I want to see what he can do with a full AFL programmed pre-season, because I loved everything in the 5 games. I loved everything that he did. Really smart with the ball, but again, was used as the sub a bunch of times. When the 5 on the bench comes in, he will be able to get into the game in the first quarter, second quarter, and not just wait until the fourth quarter when there's 15 minutes left. The game's either won or the game's either so far and it's gone, and he really can't do a lot of things. But he uses the ball super, super well. The next guy, Will Parker, only played 9 games. Obviously more this season than he did the previous season. I love Will Parker. I last season I was like, oh, is this guy going to make it? I don't really think he will. But I've loved what I've seen from Parker this season, especially as that small defender, something that we are lacking. And I think with another preseason under his belt, he could be, not a Howe replacement, but when we need that small defender, chuck Will Parker in, Dan Houston comes onto the wing like we have seen previously. And then I've also chucked in Jack Buller there because he's pretty much a magpie. He's only played 10 games, young guy, another forward. So, Howes, West, Buller in that forward category playing 0 to 10 games. That's going to be interesting to see where they go from here. So we do have these forwards coming through the VFL system, or the young system that can replace Checkers. So it's not really doom and gloom. Jack Buller, out of all of those guys, is probably the ready-made replacement who could, if you wanted to, start him in opening round or something like that, as opposed to a Charlie West. But again, it's all going to come down to pre-season. So now we move on to the guys that have played 11 to 50 games. So there's only 5 players in this category. You've got Ed Allen there, your winger. I think Ed Allen's a bit of an interesting one for me. Obviously, he does very well in the VFL. He played 13 games this season. Some of them, or most of them, were probably as the sub. Ed Allen, Lockie Sullivan, Roan Steele, Will Parker are really going to benefit from the 5 on the bench, because they get to, it gets to aid their development. They're not just sitting on the pine waiting for, 15 minutes to go in the fourth quarter to come on. Now, talking about new recruits, Harvey Harrison is virtually a new recruit. Hasn't played since the VFL final last season, where he did his ACL. Had a bit of complications this year, but that photo doesn't do him justice, because he is absolutely ripped. Every single training session that I've been to this year, he just looks like he's getting bigger, and quicker. If he can get that knee right, and it looks like he has, especially towards the end, because he was doing a little bit of match sim and stuff like that, Harvey Harrison could very much well be a Jamie Elliott replacement. I know that's a really big call, but great overhead marking. We've seen that numerous times when he's been playing in the AFL system. Backs himself, doesn't, he'll go back with the flight of the ball, take a mark, really good kicker of the ball, finds the goals. And I think if you're looking for a new recruit, Harvey Harrison is your new forward recruit to replace Jamie Elliott there. You got Reef McGuinness, who is coming off an ACL. So he did his ACL really early. I think it was round 2 against the Doggies that he did his ACL. So we won't see him until the start of the season proper. But Reef McGuinness, they've been trialing him as a backman. And I think I loved what I saw from Reef in those, the match sim game and then the preseason games and then a couple of those opening round games and stuff. Obviously, still trying to find his feet in the backline because he has played most of his career as a forward. But if you can get Reef going as a backman, can be a Howe replacement, can be a Billy Frampton replacement as well, in a sense of, you want to fly off your man. Obviously, you still need a Billy Frampton big body there. Probably why we're going after Stephen May. But I thought Frampton ended the season really, really well. Lockie Sullivan, now, of the games, guys that have played 0 to 50, Lockie Sullivan is the oldest player there. He's 27. So don't let the 24 games sort of fool you there. He is 27, so he's not under like that 25 range. But I think Lockie Sullivan is a really good role player. Do I have him starting every single game? Probably not. But if we need him, he's there. He did the Jordan DeGoey role pretty well when we needed him. So I think Lockie Sullivan will stay on the list. We'll get maybe a year contract extension. And then the last guy there, we have Ned Long, 37 games. Took the AFL world by storm. Most improved Collingwood player this season. Not much to say about Longy. He keeps his spot in the best 23. Showed a lot. Again, the only knock I have on him is his disposal efficiency. So when you see the guys that we do have waiting in the wings, maybe we don't need these big star key forwards and we start topping up with these younger players. Now, with Myercheck gone, and it sounds like he is going to Melbourne, it does give the opportunity for Jack Buller, for Charlie West, to stay in this team, and in the senior team, and really stake their claim in the team. Mason Cox was in the forward line in the prelim. Does Mason Cox even get games, or a lot of games next season? Do we need that second ruck with the center bounce gone? Do we need the second ruckman? Does that work in Cox's advantage, or is it a disadvantage to Cox? Can we just have McStay rucking in as a second ruck, and then we can bring in a Charlie West and a Jack Buller at the same time? So there's a lot of things that we can work out here, and I know one of the big gripes on Fly is he doesn't play the young kids, but he does play the young kids. But obviously, when you're trying to go for a flag and stuff like that, you need a team that is ready to go straight away. You can't just be sort of babying these guys and carrying them to a flag. Yeah, sometimes it works, but obviously we went for a different philosophy this season. We were all in this season. I think next year will be a bit more of a transitional phase where we do see these older players still playing, but we do see the likes of these younger players coming through. I think that's why Collingwood are playing pretty hard ball on Jamie Elliott, why they're playing pretty hard ball on Brody Myercheck in giving them contracts and giving them the money that they want. So it is going to be an interesting transition phase. I do think we will be still competing for a flag in 2026. So in conclusion, is Kane right in saying that Justin Leppitsch has his job on the line, or it's the hot seat? Again, I think he's right in saying that. Not to the extent that he did say it in, but looking at those players, and I thought it was a good exercise just for me as well to see who we have coming through. I think we are able to replace some of these players with just internal people. And also, I didn't even mention that you've got McCarthy coming through as a forward ruck as well, who is going to be incredible and take the AFL world by storm. I really do believe that. McGuan is probably going to be sort of a half forward or maybe on a wing a little bit. I think he's still a little bit too skinny to get smashed straight into the middle, but he's going to be a good player. And I've talked about Saxena as well. And Kerr is a tall mid. And he's looked good coming back from his ACL. He was in our NGA academy. I will be doing videos on each of those ones, doing profiles as well. So keep an eye out on that. But let me know your thoughts. Are you worried, or if we don't bring in big name players, or are you not worried? Do you think we need a big name player to help us, get back up to a flag in 2026, or are you okay with who we have waiting in the wings? Let me know your thoughts down below. But until then, like, comment, subscribe, tell your family, tell your friends, tell your pets, and until next time, double shackers. I'll swoop you later.